Welcome to Tenerife, the largest and most populous of the Canary Islands, an island archipelago located off Africa's west coast. More than 7 million tourists visit Tenerife each year, as the volcanic island offers a little something for everyone. From beautiful golden and black sand beaches to the rugged, lush landscapes along its northern coastline, and, of course, the towering Teide volcano that dominates the centre of the island. Whether you're after a sun-soaked, relaxing beach holiday or an incredible hiking adventure, Tenerife has you covered. In our last video, we showed you all the best towns and cities to visit during your stay on the island, so make sure to go check that out once you're done with this one. In this video though, we'll be taking you along on all our hiking adventures in Tenerife, from the iconic Teide National Park to the rugged coastlines and cloud forests of Anaga Rural Park.
If you're new here, we're Kitty and John, and we love to travel and experience new cultures. Whether we're exploring a country's cities or escaping into its natural regions, our passion for travel never seems to fade. After many years spent discovering the wonders of Central and South America, we're back in Europe and are excited to explore a little more of our home continent. So if you'd like to see more from our European adventures, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Our first hiking adventure took us to the stunning Teide National Park in the middle of the island. It's centered around Mount Teide, the highest mountain in Spain, with an elevation of 3,718 meters and the third highest volcano in the world if measured from its base on the ocean floor. The park was named the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2007 and is now the most visited national park in the whole of Spain. We spent 2 days exploring Teide National Park, and on our first day we drove up to it via the incredibly windy TF21 road straight from our base in Puerto de la Cruz. It was a nice road to drive up, but there weren't really any noteworthy viewpoints to stop at until after we entered the national park itself. Once we got up into the national park, it really felt like we stepped onto another planet. This was especially true at our first stop, the Minas de San Jose, where you can do a short hike out onto what feels like the surface of Mars.
There's actually a cable car that's going to take us the majority of the way up. I don't know what altitude exactly to, about like 3,000 meters, probably something like that, just over. And you can do a little hike out to a viewpoint up there. You can hike to the very summit. You need to book in advance for that, and quite far in advance, I think, because when we checked, it was like all sold out already. There's not that many spaces per day. Absolutely gorgeous day, as you can see. We're up in the massive sort of crater right now. Yeah, it's going to be an amazing day.
After this, we continued driving until we reached the cable car parking area. You can check out the cafe and gift shop here, or just head straight to the cable car. You'll need a pre-purchased timed entry ticket, and we recommend getting the earliest one you can possibly book to avoid crowds and the bigger tour groups arriving at the same time as you. For reference, it was way busier around 11 AM when we came back down to the main station than when we arrived. Teide cable car is the first cable car in the world to run on 100% renewable solar energy and will zip you up around 1,200 meters in elevation in around 8 minutes. The views looking back down as we ascended were incredible, so enjoy them whilst you can, because before we knew it, we had arrived at the top station at 3,555 meters above sea level. Unsurprisingly, it was a lot colder up there, so make sure you bring an extra layer or two. Whilst we knew we wouldn't be able to climb the summit of the volcano, we were excited to hike around to the Mirador La Fortaleza, which is a short trail you can do from the top station without a permit. However, because we visited in April, there was unfortunately still a lot of snow and ice on the path, which meant that the trails were unfortunately closed. We were obviously disappointed, but the views you get from the area around the cable car station are absolutely stunning on a clear day, so we pushed the disappointment from our minds and soaked in the incredible views of the island for as long as we could.
You're allowed to stay at the top for a maximum of 1 hour, which is more than enough if you can only hang around the viewing area. We descended back down to the base station, where we got to go through a small exhibition space as part of the experience, before continuing to drive deeper into the park.
As well as the volcano, there's a lot of different hiking trails that you can do around Teide National Park. Unfortunately, we're not having the best of luck with them today. There's a small little trail you're supposed to be able to do as part of your cable car ticket when you get to the top of Teide. Unfortunately, due to the snowy conditions up there, it was closed. And then there was another hike we wanted to do that's like a circular trail called Samara, which was closed on Mondays, Tuesdays and Fridays. And of course, it's a Friday today, which we didn't know about before we came here. So we're hoping we'll be able to come back and do that one at another time. And then the most popular hike in the park, the Roques de Garcia hike, was just absolutely heaving when we drove past it. There was no parking available anywhere, so we're hoping on the way back that we'll be able to stop. It'll be a bit later in the day. So far, we're getting some nice viewpoints of the volcano. We're not really getting to walk around much or hike as much as we wanted to.
We ended up driving all the way through the park to the west side of the island, where we stopped briefly at the Mirador de los Poleos. We got some nice views out towards the island of La Gomera from here, and if you hike up into the lava flows from the parking area, you get a nice view looking back towards Teide volcano. We spent a little bit of time just chilling and enjoying the views here, and once we felt like the worst of the tours had hopefully left, we headed back towards the Roques de Garcia trailhead. Along the way, we stopped very briefly at the Mirador Narices del Teide, where you get a close-up look at Teide volcano, as well as at the Queen's Shoe viewpoint, where we could take an extremely short trail out to a viewing platform overlooking a rock arch shaped like a lady's shoe. Thankfully, when we eventually did make it back to the Roques de Garcia trailhead, the tour buses had cleared and we were able to park fairly close to the trailhead.
So the Roques de Garcia is definitely the most popular hike in the national park, and for good reason. It's like right in the center. It's a pretty short trail, pretty accessible for everybody, like wheelchair access and everything. And it is beautiful, like very like the Garden of the Gods in Colorado. It's giving us that kind of vibes, just a little bit less green and a little bit less red, but very similar structures. So I think there's like an accessible section of the trail where, you know, like wheelchairs can come to a certain point, and then past that point it becomes more like, you know, a little bit trickier terrain. Still, like, the path is very good, pretty even. It's definitely not accessible for everybody. It's supposed to be a circular walk. You basically just walk around the rock formations along one side and then back along the other. But no, it's beautiful. Like, the formations, like I said, very similar to the Garden of the Gods and like Salta and Jujuy in Argentina, that kind of area. And obviously the giant volcano looming up above us.
The scenery as we hiked around the rock formations was stunning from start to finish. We got beautiful views of Teide volcano as we made our way up the east side of the rocks. The path ascended steadily here, but wasn't that steep at any point. It's definitely the easier side of the trail to do if you want to do a shorter walk. Eventually, we made it to the intersection with the longer path continuing up to Teide, before we continued round the back of the rocks and down the other side. This section was quite steep with loose rock underfoot, but the views of the rock formations are way better from this side in our opinion. We descended below the car park and passed around the side of a huge rock called La Catedral before ascending the steep switchbacks up to the car park. The entire trail is well worth doing, but we definitely recommend doing it either earlier in the morning or later in the evening, because when we did it in mid-afternoon it was very hot and dry and we were pretty exhausted by the end of it.
This is crazy. Literally just been up in the sunshine, Teide National Park, and then as we were descending we could see the clouds just like lower down and then come into this like ridiculously thick pea soup of clouds, and immediately it's just like a different day. I think that's one thing like with Tenerife, you just never know, like even when you're down at ground level and it looks like it's really horrible like this, drive up high enough then you're gonna get above the clouds and you're gonna experience like a completely different day.
Definitely has some microclimate, like you can't see anything.
So this morning we've decided to come back up to Teide National Park. We're actually coming a different way up. There's another road that sort of leads up to the park from near where the airport on the north of the island is. It's a much more sort of gradual road that leads up, less windy, a bit bigger, so a lot of the buses come up that one. But there's some amazing viewpoints, as you can see behind me, probably more so than on that road up from Puerto de la Cruz that we took on the first day. Got a beautiful cloud inversion this morning. It's just absolutely gorgeous with Teide behind us. Quite a few viewpoints we're going to stop at on the way up, and then hopefully we're going to be doing the Samara hike that we couldn't do the first time around this afternoon.
The first and most popular viewpoint we came up to on the drive off was Mirador de Chipre. Here we got an incredible view of Teide in the background with the pine forested ridge leading up to it and the beautiful cloud inversion in the foreground. Then we drove a tiny bit further up the road to a sort of unofficial viewpoint, the Mirador de la Esperanza, where we could park in a small lay-by and walk up to some rock formation with unobstructed views of Teide volcano in front of us. Our third and final viewpoint stop along this section of road was the Mirador La Tarta, where we got some nice shots of the volcano and watched some paragliders descending into the valley below. After that, we drove a tiny bit further up the road to about here on Google Maps, where you can park in a small lay-by and start walking along the dirt track on the other side of the road.
We're now hiking out to what should be a really cool sort of natural archway or window, at least, like a little rock window that looks back towards the volcano behind us. Seen some really cool pictures of it. It's not like signposted or advertised. There's nobody here apart from us at the moment, but it's just a beautiful walk regardless. There is a trailhead like Route 17 that we're on at the moment, and then I think this just like goes up a little bit off the route. Not very long, I'd say like maybe a kilometer there, a kilometer back, but you get beautiful views with Teide behind, and with the cloud inversion right now, it's crazy. Really reminds me a lot of when we were in Shella and we did the hike up Zunil and we got that beautiful cloud inversion in the morning. It's just spectacular. There it is, the little rock arch. Smaller than it looks, but you get the volcano through it, just about.
After soaking up the views of Teide from here, we made our way back to the car and continued driving all the way through the national park until we made it back to the Samara hike trailhead.
Just about managed to squeak a parking space at the start of the Samara hike. It's a very small parking area. I think there is quite a quick changeover because there's a tiny little trail that goes up to the summit of the Samara hill, which is really not that far from the start of the trail, just behind me up here. There's also the longer trail that some people do like we're doing, which takes you a little bit closer around towards the volcano. You can see we're just sitting right on the cloud ceiling at the moment. The volcano keeps coming in and out of view. Yeah, you can't really see much out that way. Hopefully it stays clear for the most part. Steep. Yeah, camera doesn't quite do it justice. It's pretty steep. Over this ridge is a beautiful view of Teide. Just a crazy landscape up here. You got Teide volcano up here. I find this like so cool, this river of like dried up lava here. You can really see where it's come down through here and like cut a path all the way down, just like slightly blacker than its surroundings. And just imagine when it was like properly flowing, like what it would have looked like. Super, super cool place. And very, very quiet. Really not that many people, probably thanks to the parking situation. See a bit better from here, like this sort of mini crater here just exploded out and all the lava has just come and flown down, made this big deep channel, gone all the way down the mountain, who knows how far. So crazy to imagine that happening, like witnessing that.
The path took us on a circular route back around the other side of the hill we had climbed on our way up and eventually descended back down to the car park.
So today we're in Anaga Rural Park, which is on the north sort of east tip of the island. Very much reminiscent of like Hawaii, that kind of very green, very rugged, jagged ridges and rugged coastlines. It just sits on that part of the island that gets a lot of clouds and rain, a little bit like a cloud forest kind of environment. So it's very green and very wet, so the paths can be very muddy, so you got to be aware of that. But there's loads of different trails you can do around here. There's one I think you have to book in advance, and then the rest are just kind of like first come first serve with parking. I was doing a short little one first this morning, the Sendero de los Sentidos, which is just through a little bit of the forest, these beautiful like gnarly trees. Hopefully get out to a little viewpoint.
The Sendero de los Sentidos begins from outside the visitor center, where you can get some information about the park's history and wildlife. There's also a really nice viewpoint you can check out from the car park, where you can get great views towards Teide on a clear day. We recommend coming here first thing in the morning because parking becomes pretty difficult later in the day. Once you're ready to begin the hike, follow the signs for the Sendero de los Sentidos and you'll immediately start descending through gnarly trees and tight pathways. After a short time, we reached the lookout point called Mirador Llano de los Loros, where we got nice views down towards the rugged coastline below.
Look at this. Beautiful view at the end of this Sendero de los Sentidos hike. Very much like we're in Hawaii or somewhere like that, or Costa Rica.
At this point, you'll want to begin circling back up toward the car park. As we did so, the clouds began to roll in, and by the time we got back up to the car park, we were walking through very thick clouds which obscured all visibility. This is very common weather in Anaga, and that's the reason why it's so green. So if you can, really try to make sure you time your visit for a clear day. Because the weather wasn't the best in this area of the park, we decided to continue driving all the way to the other side of Anaga in the hopes of getting some clearer skies. We turned off the main route through the park and began descending towards Taganana. The lower we got, the clearer it became, and we stopped at the Mirador Risco Amagoje along this road to check out the views.
One thing we can say for certain here is that the road is pretty insane. Just coming over this sheer ridge right here. Loads of hairpin turns. If it's clear with views like this. One thing we definitely advise though for this area is to get here earlier in the day or later, because the parking situation is pretty restricted. A lot of the little towns, they don't have much in the way of official car parking, so it does get full very quickly. We've had to abandon some of our plans for today because there was no parking. It's not the easiest in terms of actually getting out the car and actually doing stuff.
From here we descended the rest of the way down to the coast and stopped in the tiny village of Almasiga, where we could take a short walkway out to the Roque de los Bodegas. Further up the road from here, we stopped briefly at the Mirador de Benijo restaurant to get a quick look down the rugged coastline before backtracking and stopping for lunch next to Playa de Benijo, watching the surfers and enjoying the views. When we were ready to leave, we drove back up the main road and descended out of the park via the south towards San Andres. Whilst technically not part of Anaga Rural Park, we think coming to San Andres at the end of a day hiking in the park would be a great idea, as the colourful town is home to Playa de las Teresitas, one of the best beaches on the island. This would be the perfect way way to soak tired muscles at the end of a long day hiking.
So just arrived in Taborno for the Taborno Rock hike, which is getting quite a popular hike here in the Anaga National Park. When we first came here, we couldn't get any parking. There's really not, again, that much parking here, kind of like a staple of the rural park. There's these little lay-bys along the town, but not that many at all. So we've just arrived around about 9 o'clock and pretty much managed to get a space quite easily. By the time we got here at like 11ish the other day, we couldn't get a space at all and it was pretty busy. But you can see why it's popular. I mean, look at this. Incredible view down the coastline, which we're going to get hopefully the whole way along this walk. And there is the aforementioned Taborno Rock. That's what we're going to be hiking around. So the trail comes down along the ridge and then it just goes around the rock and you just get spectacular views in both directions.
Good way to do it.
Yes, it's a little bit bright one way at the moment. Looking that way. Views that way will be nice. Wow, what an incredible view. This place is insane. Just like really reminiscent of Hawaii when we were in Oahu, and like this looks a bit like that rock in the Faroe Islands, and then this way it just keeps reminding us of like Colombia, the Kokora Valley, that kind of area. Absolutely stunning. 'This is not the Tenerife you see on the package holiday brochures. Look at this.
Just feels like we're in Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, it's super impressive today, even with the clouds covering bits of it.
Imagine if it was clear.
Or like later in the day or early in the morning. I think later in the day is better because I think the sunrise is like here and then sets obviously over here somewhere. So the light in the evening's probably the best. You can just about see where we were the other day. So this is like Benijo down here. That's where the beach is and where we were sort of walking around the other day. But look at this drop off. Just straight down. The colors, the greens and the blues. Wow. So beautiful. 100% recommend doing this hike if you're here in Tenerife. It's really not that hard, under 5k. The path is pretty well maintained, a little bit muddy at times, but look at this view. For the easiness of the trail, you could not ask for a better view.
Once back around the rock, we headed back to the car and drove back up to the main road. From here, we went back towards the visitor center, but turned off just before getting there towards the Mirador Pico del Ingles. Before going down to the viewpoint, make sure to stroll through the old road, which reminded us of the old roads in the south of England. Then you can walk or drive a little further along the road until you reach the Pico del Ingles viewpoint, where you would get more spectacular panoramic views of the rural park.
As you can see, there is no shortage of incredible hikes to do in Tenerife. We only did a very short number of small trails within Teide National Park and Anaga Rural Park, but there are plenty of long distance hikes to do too, as well as some hikes within Teide Rural Park on the northwest side of the island. We hope this video has given you a greater appreciation for just how beautiful the island of Tenerife is, and has inspired you to maybe get out of the resorts for a day or two to really experience all the natural beauty that this island has to offer. Don't forget to go and watch our other video where we take you around all the towns and cities in Tenerife, and make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you want to keep up to date with all of our latest videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.